Hello everyone, it's time again to look at a 1/144 scale Revell fighter, and we've only got two left, and I think today I choose the F-15A Eagle. This video we're going to be looking at unboxing this F-15A Eagle. This is part of a series of 1/144th scale Revell kits. There should be a link appearing for the playlist should you wish to be brought up to speed. If this is a particularly short unboxing, I'll perhaps blend it into a build video as well. I won't know that, of course, because at time of filming I haven't looked inside the box. Having a little look at the box first, the price here, Young World, £2.89, that's not what I paid for it. In case you don't know, I bought 4 of these on eBay and they worked out as about £6 something each, including postage. But that's obviously an old price tag from the person that owned it before I did. We have this blue box, standard Revell style box for the era, and it gives us some information including what it is, the brand, the scale, model kit, dimensions, and aircraft illustration. This one has a product code of 04010. On this edge we have a little bit of history on the F-15. It's obviously present tense. It's considered one of the most sophisticated multi-purpose bomber aircraft. So yes, present tense rather than past tense. And here it tells us, I don't know what it tells us. Oh yeah, basic paints. There appear to be a load of seagulls screaming at each other outside the house. That's interesting, I don't live by the sea. But yes, it gives you the basic colours on this panel here. On the other long edge, we have an unassembled kit. So again, it just tells us what we've got. Suitable for ages 8 to adult. If you're older than an adult, you're not allowed. We have a copyright date, 1982. Now, of course, the copyright date does not necessarily mean that that is when the kit was tooled, but it does give us some sort of indication that this is not going to be a modern kit. The shop edges state that this is a skill level 2, and otherwise include only the same information that we already know, and that's the same on the other side. On the back, we have a miscellaneous blob, so if you're interested in this particular aircraft, you may also be interested in completely unrelated aircraft through history. It would be nice if they tailored these, so you know, I'm buying an F-15, maybe you want to recommend me your F-14, but no, apparently not. And here it just tells you that the skill level is entirely based on the number of parts. Skill level 1 is a snap together kit, skill level 2 is one above that, so we're not expecting any real difficulty with this. Did it tell us anywhere on here how many parts it had? It's usually on here. There we go, 23 parts. It did say it, I just didn't notice it. 23 parts. Well, not much else to do, but take a look inside, I guess. This is what we are greeted with. I'm going to look at the decal sheet first, and that is just so that I can get them out of the way, not accidentally scratch them. So let's just have a quick look and throw them on the desk. There's not many here, of course. We have some red, we have some blue, we have some national insignia. We have whatever that says. It's got some dates in it. It's very, oh, it's the American Revolution bicentennial. It's very patriotic. Wonderful. And we have some yellow things, yellow stripes. Are they for weapons? Because this is a demonstrator. It shouldn't have any weapons. Unsure, I guess reading the instructions would help. They are a little bit yellowed. I don't know if it shows up on the camera, but they're a tiny bit yellowed. Shouldn't necessarily be an issue. I've definitely dealt with worse, but worth noting anyway. Now that they're somewhere safe, we're going to have a look at this. It should just be a standard warning sheet. Yep, there it is, security text. This will just tell you very basic things like don't give to children. In fact, none of this is in English except for the word security text. On the other side, things, you know, that you shouldn't do. You shouldn't boil it in a pan. You shouldn't put it on a 40-degree wash, stick to 30 degrees, that sort of stuff. Do not eat, drink or smoke, you know, that sort of things. And then here we have the instructions. This is very thin. There's no second page. Here we have the same basic warnings that we had before. This tells us how to make the model. Well, it doesn't tell us how to make the model. I mean, it tells us what the parts, what the instructions mean. It tells us what the symbols in the instructions are. There we go. Get words out. Fantastic. Fantastic. Soak and apply decals. And here we have some colours. It just says A to G. It misses that space and it misses all of those spaces. I don't know why they formatted it like that. They could just have A there and G there and not need 2 lines. But for some reason they've put it on 2 lines. It does give us numbers, but it doesn't help very much. It's a bit of a stupid way of doing it, but I've rambled about that before in the past, so I won't dwell on it now. Oh, and there we go. That's it, in 7 steps. Step 1 is deciding whether you're doing it with wheels up or wheels down. And step 2 is building the plane. Step 3 and 4 are finishing the plane. And then if you're doing wheels up or down is step 5 or 6. And then applying the decals is step 7. That's it. There's nothing else. Well, I think this probably won't take me long to build. Yeah, not the greatest of instructions, not going to lie. In terms of colour instructions, they're very small. Obviously it's a small aircraft, but usually the colour call-out is larger than it. There's my steel rule. It's 5.5 centimetres or 2 inches in freedom units. It's, yes, very small painting instructions. Or decal instructions, sorry. Well, I suppose they're both, aren't they? And you're painting that F. What's F? F is red. Presumably you have to find your own red to match the decals, I would guess. Or you could mask it and paint it. This seems a lot more frustrating than I wanted it to. We have more security text on here, but I think it's the same as before. Yeah, and that is it. There is nothing else here. Done. Just like that. Well, we are smashing through this. Everything here is in a sealed bag. So let me cut this open and see what we've got. There are 2 white plastic sprues and 1 single clear sprue comprising of just 1 piece. We're going to take a look at the clear part first. It says F-15 on it. See there? It is obviously just a canopy. I can already see some smudges. It's a little bit foggy and there is a slight... you can't quite see it from the angle there, but I can. There's a sight seam line on it. Doesn't look awful. It is very small, of course. That is in this kit's favour in this instance. It's not going to be particularly noticeable in any account, but it's still nice to have clear plastic. But no, that looks ingrained in. So that's probably not going to look very good. Right, moving on at random to this sprue. Does it have a label? No, it doesn't. It just says F-15. This is the top of the fuselage wing piece. It's the tail surfaces. We have some nozzles which have no detail in there. There's just a sort of raised circle. And the wheels, as you can see there. That is all we've got. The detail, however, is actually very nice. It's recessed, so engraved panel lines, which is not what I was expecting for the age, if I'm honest. It's very crisp. I cannot see any flash, which is helpful. There is a notable surface texture, so on the underside of the wings. I don't know if you can hear that. It's very rough, but on the top it's very smooth. I don't know if that's deliberate or not. It's just something I've noticed. Seems to be the same on the tail as well. So hopefully that is to be that is planned and that is not some random malfunction. Yeah, looks fine. The other sprue then also says F-15 at the top. This is the belly. This is also textured the same way but in reverse, so I don't think it is deliberate. So this one is very smooth on the top and this one is very smooth on the bottom, but because the wings are in one piece here, top and bottom, and the tail is here as well, it means that one surface of the wings is going to be completely different to the others, which is a bit strange. Never mind. Here's the nose. There is no interior detail. I didn't see any in the instructions either. So we've got no cockpit at all, no floor. nothing, no pilot. You're just going to have a vast empty space. In fact, you're not even going to have that, because I've noticed that the you can't. There you go. The top of the pilot area is just a solid block, so there is no interior whatsoever. This is in stark contrast to all of the others that I've looked at thus far. The Harrier had a pilot that had been brutally welded and fused with the seat. The Hunter has a lovely interior. The F-18 had a very nice interior as well. This doesn't even have a hole. So, yeah. It does, however, have some weaponry. It is a demonstrator. Now, I don't know if this demonstrator flew with weapons on it or not, or whether it only flew clean, but I do know that I can't see any mounting points for them included at all. So, I'm not entirely sure how you're supposed to stick the weapons to it. I haven't gone mad, have I? Or have I? Oh, I think I have gone mad. I have gone mad, but I also haven't in this context. So here are the weapons. So you stick them in, but they don't necessarily go anywhere. They go on the fuselage. I mean, they don't go onto a hard point or anything. You just seem to glue them onto the side of the belly, which does seem a little strange. Yeah. I'm not sure about that one, if I'm honest. Without them, you're basically just sticking those bits together, the nose and then the tail, and then you're done. That's it. If you're doing it with the wheels up, this is a 5-minute build. And also for sanity checking, I've counted 23 parts, which matches what it says on the box. Although I do note that if you're doing it with the wheels down, it said to cut apart. So a query about the Hunter that I had last time was that the parts were completely wrong. Remove. Yes, you're cutting that part if you want to have the wheels up. Right, and basically over before it began, that was the unboxing. So let's just have a look at the listing on ScaleMates. Now, when you search for an F-15 Eagle, this is what pops up, the Revell microfighters. This does not look to be the same one. Obviously, it's not the same scheme. But according to ScaleMates, the new tooled one is this. Now, obviously, that's the same box as what I've looked at, but the date for this is 1988, whereas on the box itself, it had a copyright of 1982. So, obviously, ScaleMates is user updated and user maintained, so it's entirely possible that this should not be here. It should be somewhere else. I note that the new decals they give is for this boxing, which says it's 1989. It seems unlikely, so I don't think we can particularly trust this. There is, of course, a new F-15 which is available, which is the F-15E. I expect this is a completely different tooling, partly because the F-15E is a different aircraft. I mean, it just is. It's not like it's a slight variation of it. It's a new airframe, essentially, inspired by the original. And partly because I've made the F-15E and it looks nothing like this one. That's the one I made, Strike Eagle and Bombs. But it does give this release here, which is the similar product code 04005. This one's 04010. So yeah, I think it's safe to say it's inconclusive, but it's probably before then and no earlier than then. I would be more inclined to say that it's around 1974, the Arii tooling, and there you go, look at that. And that sometime around 1982, they sold the tool or licensed Revell to use the tooling, and that is the version that we see. That's what makes sense to me. Obviously, that's not what it states here. It states that it was a new tool in 1988, but that doesn't seem to be correct. And you can verify that by looking at the original instructions from that Arii release, which essentially is the same. Obviously, it's been reformatted, but that to me looks to be this particular kit. So to summarise, we have 23 parts, a few decals. It's not a Revell tooling, it's probably Arii, and none of that is made clear on the box, and the copyright date doesn't seem to make any sense according to ScaleMates. So apart from all of that, this looks excellent. All that's said and done, I'm now going to go and build this model, so join me in about 10 minutes time when it will probably be finished on my desk. Due to the lack of substance in this kit, I've decided to do this all straight through as one video. So to briefly summarise, I've put the tool date as 1982, even though, as stated, I think it was the 1970s. We've got 23 parts, which increases to 25 if you do the undercarriage up, one decal scheme, and no idea what a recommended retail price could be for this because it's not available and hasn't been for a considerable amount of time. Construction doesn't begin with the interior on the grounds of there not being any interior, so instead I'm snipping the main fuselage parts off of the relevant sprues. There is no reason for the texture that I can see, so I'm guessing that this is just part of the tooling itself. You have this weird bubbly texture on one surface and then smooth on the other. In theory, painting it will get rid of most of that and you won't even notice it anyway because it's so fine. The way that the plastic feeds into the parts is actually really convenient because you can see here that I can sand on an edge that isn't going to be visible anyway, but it does indicate a fairly well thought out design. The nose section is then glued together. This is of course where a cockpit would be, and instead we've just got this solid top over it. I do often question the placement of the locating pins on fairly old kits. In this case, the nose is absolutely fine, and the main bulk of the aircraft here, which is of course the fuselage and wings all in one piece to the bottom of the fuselage bit, they don't have any locating pins because it uses the shape of each other's parts to slide in, if you excuse the expression. The nose section was attached whilst the entire thing was still wet, just to make sure that I could adjust all of the components as necessary, and then the vertical stabilisers and control surfaces are put on. There is a slight angling of the locating ridges to try and get it at the right angle, but honestly you mostly just have to eyeball it, and with that the plane is predominantly done. So we're going to stick in the exhaust nozzles. These are very basic in their detail, but that's, as you saw, there's sort of nothing inside really, but they do have a nice texture on the exterior. And that's pretty much the construction done, and the entire aircraft was primed in Tamiya Fine Grey Primer. This provides a nice base coat for gloss white, and yes, that is white plastic that I've primed grey and am then painting white. But in my defence, I don't have any white primer, and I certainly didn't want to paint directly onto the plastic because it felt a little bit smooth, and it's hard to get paint to stick when it's smooth. This also allows for a slightly more textured approach, so you can have an opaque finish by just applying a bit more paint and a fairly mottled finish by applying a little bit less. It is now time to apply the decals, and I'm doing this before painting the red and the blue because there is a nose decal which has the red divide, so it is easier to put the decals on first in my opinion. Also notice that it's got copyright 2000 on the decal sheet, which is yet another copyright date to go and chuck into the mix. It seems likely that these decals have been sitting in this box for over 2 decades, so there is always going to be a level of concern that they're going to disintegrate. Not only that, they have to go around some complicated shapes, particularly the one around the nose, but also the one behind the cockpit area as well. However, I'm pleased to report that there were no major casualties. There are a couple of tears here and there, including on one of these bits that goes alongside the canopy, but you wouldn't really notice it. It's just being very careful, plenty of decal solution if necessary, and also accepting that it's probably not going to be perfect, so don't waste your time making it perfect. Ultimately, just paint it if you wanted it better. The decals on the tail are equally as fiddly. There's the decorated one on the outer edges and the plainer one on the inside edges, but thankfully, along with all of the decals in this kit, they are the right size, so they fit nicely, you don't have to trim them, but we will be looking at these tail decals a little bit closer later on. Once everything had been left to dry, it is time to mask up the wing tip colours. I'm going for this Hataka B219 Insignia Red, which is from a United States Navy interwar paint set. This is the closest match I have. I have very few reds and I couldn't be bothered to mix something. It's pretty close, so I thought it would do. This is just brushed on the tips, which have been masked by eyeball. If you really wanted the best finish, then I would recommend that you airbrush some white over the top of this and then airbrush the red on. I couldn't be bothered. You've got to remember how small this kit is and how basic this kit is, so I'm not going to be putting in a phenomenal amount of effort when, quite frankly, I don't think it's worth it. But you can see here, by painting the nose around that red decal, it's a lot easier, firstly, to know how much to paint, and it also shows that the colour's not far off. Meanwhile, the Roundel Blue is the colour that I chose. This is RAF Roundel Blue. Yes, it is. It's from a set of post-war colours, so for post-war jets, things like that. It is a little bit paler and a little bit thinner, and this one probably should have been airbrushed on, but again, it's not far off, and I could have darkened it a little bit. Maybe I'd recommend that you do. It's always a bit tricky trying to find the exact shade of paint that a decal is on, especially when, like this, you have to paint around the cockpit area and paint basically on the decal. But I am very happy with the end result, so I think the gamble paid off. The exhaust nozzles are then painted this mix of black and silver. I still don't own a gunmetal paint. I don't know why I've never bought one, but I haven't. So I'm mixing black and silver and just brushing it on. And then I tend to give things a little dry brush of silver as well. In this case, I didn't, because again, it is tiny. And whilst mixing that, I also painted the cockpit area black so that you at least mask what little can be seen, which is of course nothing. The canopy is then glued on just using the standard Revell contactor because I like to live dangerously, and it's fine. It's a little bit thick, and yeah, there are the occasional scratches on it, but thankfully that just means you can't actually see inside to see how there is nothing inside. So if anything, it works in its favour that the quality is a little bit poor. As masking canopies is for chumps, I've just gone straight in with a small paintbrush, very carefully, by eyeball, painting along the very faint panel lines and scratching off any excess with a toothpick. Should really paint black as an undercoat, and so that if you look through you get something black to see. But honestly, again, it's so small and it's so basic, it doesn't really matter. This is very much me making putting in the amount of effort for the model that I am making, rather than going above and beyond and making it incredible. We are now on the undercarriage. The undercarriage was painted white at the same time as everything else, so it was on the sprue, just left it there, but I blitzed it with the same primer, painted it white with the same gloss white. Everything has been satin varnished with some Vallejo varnish. The wheels, of course, are entirely black. They are not white. And then they can just be glued on. You note that I didn't put any weight in the nose, and how I'm usually very anal about putting weight in the nose. Well, you have about 15 seconds to work out whether it needed any or not, because you're going to see the end result. The undercarriage is very easy to assemble, and just with some fine tweezers, the undercarriage doors go on, and we are calling it job done. And if you said it needs weight, you are correct. I'm using blue tack to stick the front wheel down onto the turntable. This is a tail sitter, but this is at least the end result. And what can I say? It was an afternoon that I spent doing a thing. This kit is extremely basic. It doesn't have much detail at all. The panel lines are at least vaguely in the right place, but again, none of the external detail really is worth talking about. It's a very basic interpretation of an F-15A, but I actually enjoyed this. I was motivated to just get it done for all the good reasons. I didn't just sort of glue bits together and then leave it sitting on a shelf for weeks like I sometimes do. I wanted to get it done because it has an interesting colour scheme, and I just thought it would look quite nice and bright on the shelf. And even though it's an incredibly basic kit, it didn't put up any fight whatsoever. It was a really simple build, very little flash or tidying up needed, no complaints from any of the parts, as long as you are using your eyes and lining things up properly. And yeah, there is no interior detail whatsoever, but again, it's tiny, and look, here you can barely see anyway, so I don't really think it loses out on much by not having an interior. And what of this tail decal that you mentioned earlier? Well, here it is. Can you see the mistake? It says bicentennial, not bicentennial, bicentennial. And I didn't notice that spelling mistake until embarrassingly late in the construction. But yes, that is the only thing that I've noticed. I double-checked everything else, and everything seems spelt fine. It's the same on both sides as well, so they've messed it up twice, but at least they're consistent. If I had to guess, I would say that that is Revell who are responsible for that, but obviously there's no way of knowing, but I've not seen this release, this scheme, in any other release of this kit. It is just the Revell one, so I'm guessing it's just somebody there doesn't know how to spell or spell check. All in all then, there are worse ways of spending a weekend than chucking together an incredibly simple kit, but let me know what you think. Does this look too simple for you? Have you built it? Have you done something weird with it and super detailed it and corrected the misspelling on the tail, or I don't know, other mad things that you may or may want to do with such a tiny aircraft? For me, this isn't the sort of thing that I would normally buy. The fact that it's simple doesn't bother me, as I've said, and as things go for the 1/144th scale selection, this is actually one of the better ones because of the end result. The Harrier's pilot welded into the seat, I think, is the lowest that I've seen, the lowest bar that you can get in this little selection of kits, and the fully detailed interior of things like the F-18 and the Hunter are not going to be beaten, but this, surprisingly, isn't that bad because it's so small it honestly doesn't matter. They've only put in the detail that they need, and where the detail is needed it matters. The undercarriage is fine, the exhaust nozzle exterior detail is fine, the general shape and panel lines are fine. If you've liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and you can leave a comment to please the algorithm as well. If you're not a subscriber, you can hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be alerted of when my videos go live, and you can even become a channel member like the people appearing on screen. These people get spoilers aplenty, as I like sharing what's on my bench with them first, and then on YouTube and other social media much later on. If you are interested in joining them, there will be details in the video description. If not, doesn't matter. Just watching the video is enough to satisfy my ego. And on that note, I am off to go and find another kit to build. There is, of course, one more 1/144th scale aircraft, so who knows, maybe that will be the best of the bunch. Although I somehow doubt it. Goodbye.